Hello and welcome back to another Warcraft video. This time we are going to be talking about the Warlords of Draenor and more importantly the lore of the planet of Draenor itself, because a lot of people only know it as Outland and I think it would just be a great thing to clear it up for everyone and go over the lore. Now this is going to be more the history of the planet. I will in a future video be digging through all the different maps and RPG things and basically every bit of information we know about the pre-Outland Draenor. But until now, we are just going to go through all the book stuff, in-game stuff, essentially the full history from zero to where we are now of the planet. Now, Draenor is not really unlike Azeroth in a lot of ways. It was a little bit more red, I suppose, in the intent, we know that, and it was inhabited by the Orcs. Now, the Orcs were an intelligent and shamanistic society. They were actually rather peaceful, a pretty good bunch of people, and it was essentially quite a happy place for the most part. In terms of other races, you had things like, say, the Ogres, and the Ogres and the Orcs didn't always see eye to eye, and in quite a lot of cases tried to take each other's eyes via knives. They were, I suppose they skirmished from time to time. However, in general, it was a relatively peaceful planet. Now, the next turn in this story actually comes from somewhere different, an entirely different planet called Argus, and Argus is the home of the Draenor. Now, at the time, of course, they were known as the Eredar, at least that's what they called themselves, and the Burning Legion were floating around and decided that the Eredar had some potential. Now, you see, the Eredar had a great affinity with magic, they were very powerful, and they had three leaders. These were called Archimonde, Kil'jaeden, and the Prophet Velen, who we know in game today. Now, Archimonde and Kil'jaeden essentially sold out their species for power and immortality. However, when he was trying to sell them to this, Sigaris essentially said, look, it's a utopia, and we're going to be using your immense power to spread good things around the galaxy and bring about order and good things, right? So Velen knew this would turn out badly, as he had the gift of sight. Now, what is the gift of sight? Well, it's essentially just foresight, and this was given to him by a Naru called Kuur. I think it's Kuur. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, so he knew that this utopia that Sigaris promised was a lie, and he decided to leave the planet. He ended up taking roughly a third of the Eredar population. After praying to Kuur, he told Velen, Kuur did, that he should go to the highest mountain of the planet and bring everyone he could muster. So he actually did succeed, and he left the planet on a ship called Oshu'gun. Now, this may be familiar to you, as it actually crashed in Nagrand, and you can see it in-game. So eventually they did make their way to the planet of Draenor. Draenor wasn't the first place they landed at, but they essentially went from place to place, and by the time the Burning Legion discovered where they were already gone. Now, essentially, as soon as they got there, they met the Orcs. And of course, the Orcs are not the bloodthirsty kind of demon people that they used to be, or the Garrosh-led horde that they are now, or at least were. And they were they were in good trading terms with the local Orcs. And I think there was a bit of a mutual respect between the Draenor and their belief in the light, and the Orcs and their shamanism. Now, things were, of course, going to change for the worse. Kil'jaeden, he essentially kept on, he was really angry that he kept on finding out only just where the Draenor had been, and he could never quite catch them. So he told his sources to go and locate where they were, and he found the planet of Draenor, and he decided to do things a little bit more subtly than he used to. He told Ner'zhul, who was one of the elder orc shamans at the time, that the Draenor were actually plotting against his people, and after a few attacks, Velen sent a courier to the Orcs so that they could talk it out. The courier was killed, and instead of coming himself, he sent Druotan to meet under Oshu'gun. Velen explained what was happening, including some of the history of their race, and the actual true nature of Oshu'gun. Now, Oshu'gun had been seen as a religious site for the Orcs, so to a lot of the Orcs there, this was considered to be blasphemy. Now, despite this, Druotan did end up releasing Velen, but the whole blasphemy thing was definitely used as rhetoric by individuals like Ner'zhul to enrage the Orc populace into essentially beginning a war with their past allies. Eventually things would get worse once the Horde was unified under the leadership of Gul'dan. Now, Gul'dan was Ner'zhul's apprentice, and he began training as a warlock under the mentorship of Kil'jaeden. Now, I'm not going to go fully into the Orc story here, because honestly, it's the most complicated angle to take this at, and I don't really think I could do it justice if I'm very honest, but this will definitely give you the main angle. Basically, there's quite a lot of different Orc characters. Now, what happened here is that there was a full-on war, a full-on offensive against the Draenei. They destroyed a lot of their cities, and they even defiled Velen's temple, which would actually become known as the Black Temple, which we know today. Of course, later on, Illidan would take up residence in it. So after this had happened, their city of Shattrath had been attacked and all these different things, Velen and the survivors went into hiding in Zangarmarsh up in Talar, which is the settlement on the Giant Mushroom. So they were in hiding from the Orcs, and they were actually lucky enough to be successful in their attempt to hide. For quite a long time they went completely under the radar, which is definitely good for them, because it meant that significantly less of their population was slaughtered by this new bloodthirsty horde. Now, a lot of things happened here, and we're going to talk very briefly about Grom Hellscream. Now, you may know Grom, he is the father of Garrosh. Now, one thing in a leak they said, in one of the leaks about this new expansion, the person said that apparently they're going to be calling him Garamash, which is probably the guy's full name, to avoid some legal things, but essentially him and Grom are the same guy. Now, when the Orcs were ended up being fully subservient to the Burning Legion is when they drank the demon blood, and this was essentially, Grom was very much involved in it. And this is one of the things that sort of made the Orcish horde of Draenor bloodthirsty, violent, and eager to conquer. So what had happened to the planet was that it was quite torn up by all the warlock magic that had been going around the place. And now that they had completed their goal of destroying the Draenei, Kil'jaeden didn't really care for them that much. He had just went and created this extremely powerful race due to the empowerment of all the warlock magics and those various things, and the demon blood. And they were now left on a stranded planet, so they needed somewhere to conquer. And Medivh, who was of course under the possession of Sagaris at the time, managed to hatch a plan with the Shadow Council, who were the ruling warlocks of the Orcs, and they decided to open the the Dark Portal. And the Dark Portal is, of course, the way we get into Outland in-game. Now, this led to the first war in Azeroth, where the Orcs caused very significant damage to the humans, and in fact nearly wiped them out. It was actually Gul'dan's own selfishness that led the Orcs to failure. They actually, what Gul'dan did is he tried to go and find this tomb of Sagaris, where just an avatar of Sagaris had died to get infinite power, and he ended up dying there. And that's really the main reason why the first war was lost, because he took half the army with him when he got killed. Now, in an attempt to find some other worlds to conquer, Ner'zhul opened multiple portals to other worlds. And the magic involved in this was extremely destructive, and it ripped the planet of Draenor just completely to shreds. And in fact, the place that's known as Outland today is only a fragment of the planet. It used to be, in all likelihood, a spherical planet like Azeroth, and it was just destroyed by this magic. And this was so destructive that the Alliance forces at the Alliance expedition, that's led by the Archmage Khadgar, decided that they had to close the Dark Portal, I suppose just to seal everything off and prevent things from getting worse. So that happened. Now, 20 years later, we find the planet in the state we knew it in the Burning Crusade. Illidan Stormrage, accompanied by his Naga and Blood Elf allies, sought refuge from Kil'jaeden. After Illidan, he was told to destroy the Lich King, which ended up, that's where Ner'zhul ended up sort of going. And Kil'jaeden wanted, of course, Illidan to go and finish the job and kill the Lich King, i.e. kill Ner'zhul, or at least his spirit. And he failed in this, as we know. Arthas defeated him. And, yeah, unfortunately for him, he was on the run, and he took up residence in Black Temple. Now, the Blood Elves, under the command of Prince Kael'thas Sunstrider, took up refuge in the narrow, interdimensional fortress of Tempest Keep. Now, Tempest Keep is up in Netherstorm, and beside that you will see things like the Botanicon and the Alcatraz, and before we got there, the Exodar was actually parked up there as well. And with all this going on, Velen decided that it was time to leave. He led a raid on the Exodar, and the Exodar is one of the narrow ships that Kael had taken over, and the Blood Elves managed to actually sabotage the reactor before Velen and his forces could stop them, I suppose. And this ended up that the reactor overloaded, malfunctioned, and they sort of flew off into the Twisting Nether, and they ended up crash landing on Azure Mist Isle in Azeroth, and that's how they got to the planet. Now, I know this does seem a little bit like the story of the Draenei, but honestly, the story of the Draenei in many ways is the story of Draenor. because the Draenor are the reason why the Orcs got all their demon blood and things, because the Orcs had to be used by Kil'jaeden as a tool to destroy the Draenor. So it's really their coming to the planet which led to its eventual downfall and the bad business that the Orcs ended up with. Now, if you are curious, by the way, Grom Hellscream in our timeline, Grom actually he managed to essentially release the Orcish people from the demonic possession. And the reason, well, the way this happened is that Mannoroth was one of the Pit Lords. Basically, Grom realized what he had done. He realized what had happened, and being an orc and still at least knowing the shamanistic ideals and things, he wanted to reclaim his honor and free his people. And to do this, he charged at Mannoroth with Gorhal, his axe, which is now unfortunately being all, well, corrupted by the touch of Yesharaj under the use of Garrosh. And he charged Mannoroth, and he actually ended up killing Mannoroth. And essentially, Mannoroth, well, he went up like a giant nuclear explosion, which was quite interesting to watch. But yeah, that's the thing, and apparently Grom is going to be the new antagonist of the expansion, since it's a time travel expansion. And if you don't know, what happens in this expansion is that we travel back in time. Well, apparently, of course, this all goes off speculation, as I'm sure is really just a given. All we have is BB, I'm just going to say that because I don't really know how to pronounce it in the French name, who was the main guy over at mmo-champion, essentially said, "I personally am very confident." Essentially this means his inside sources have told him that this is going to be the next expansion. So there's a very good chance. Anyway, so yeah, that will involve us going back in time to stop Grom from causing the Orcs to take their demon blood. And yeah, overall, it seems like a very interesting expansion. It is not the angle I expected. From a lore perspective as well, time travel's very messy, as I'm sure anyone who's ever watched Star Trek will know. But anyway, that's essentially it for this video. Now, I will be doing a few other videos on this topic. I plan on going through the full story of pretty much every character that I can think of who's involved. I'll be talking about the actual world of Draenor itself. I'll pull out some maps from the old, I think it's the old Warcraft 2 or Warcraft 3 manual, that kind of thing. We should have quite a fun time with it. But for now, that's really this video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you would like to hit that like button and subscribe, I'd very much appreciate it because, you know, small channel, still on the up. And with that, I'll see you all next time.